Welcome to the Ignorant Artist Podcast, where we take art history seriously, but not too seriously. Today we're talking about William Blake, one of my favorite printmakers. One of the things I really love about Blake is the way he uses color and the word and painting techniques and printing techniques all combined to make beautiful, imaginative, illustrative images. All driven by his own imagination. He seldom worked from life. He and his wife Catherine would stay up nights hand coloring all of his prints, his books, everything he ever did. And he never sold a lot of work, and I can relate to that, but I love his imagery, and I think you'll enjoy this information. Be sure to check it out at the end. There's links and references to all the material used in this podcast. Everything is from public domain sources, and we encourage you to explore some more. So thank you, and I hope you enjoy the podcast.
William Blake was born in London in 1757, the son of a hosier, a sock and stocking merchant, which tells you something right away about the world he came from. Not aristocracy, not academia. Working London. He showed unusual talent early, and at 14 his family apprenticed him to an engraver named James Basseer. For 7 years, Blake learned his trade the hard way, cutting copper plates, working with acid baths, mastering the burin. This was not a hobby. This was a skilled manual trade, and Blake became genuinely excellent at it. By the time he set up his own workshop with his wife Catherine in the 1780s, he had a plan that was unusual, even by the standards of his eccentric era. He was going to publish his own books, and he was going to make every single page himself. The process Blake invented, he called it illuminated printing, was a form of relief etching. He would write his text and draw his images directly onto copper plates using an acid-resistant varnish. Then he'd submerge the plates in acid, which ate away the exposed copper and left his lines standing in relief. Then he'd ink the raised surface, press damp paper to it, and pull a print. Then he and Catherine would hand color each copy individually. This is why no two copies of Songs of Innocence and Experience are quite the same. Each one was a unique object, colored by hand, sometimes with wildly different palettes. You could buy one copy of The Marriage of Heaven and Hell, where the borders are gold and rose, and another where they're deep blue and black. Same text, different emotional register entirely. For a printmaker, this is genuinely radical. The whole point of printmaking, the reason Gutenberg matters, is reproducibility. Blake reversed that. He used a print process to make objects that couldn't be reproduced. Now, the visions. Blake reported seeing angels in a tree as a child. He claimed his dead brother Robert visited him and taught him the illuminated printing technique in a dream. He described seeing the prophet Ezekiel sitting in a field. He populated his poetry with figures he claimed to have seen: Los, Urizen, the four Zoas. These were not metaphors to him. He insisted they were real. There are a few ways to think about this. One, he was genuinely experiencing visionary states, possibly related to the chemicals he worked with daily: acid fumes, lead-based pigments, copper dust. Occupational exposure to neurotoxins was not well understood in the 18th century, and chronic exposure to some of the substances a working engraver would have handled can produce neurological effects, including visual phenomena. 2. He was working within a specific tradition of visionary Christianity, the dissenting Protestant sects of his era that took direct divine communication seriously. In that tradition, a vision wasn't a sign of madness. It was a sign of grace. 3. He was a poet and an artist with an extraordinarily powerful visual imagination who described inner experiences in the most vivid language available to him. And that language happened to be literal rather than metaphorical. All three of these are probably true simultaneously. Blake was a man of his time, a product of his trade, and a genuine original. The visions fit all three frames at once. What he was not, and this matters, was successful in his lifetime. Blake sold almost nothing. The Illuminated books were made in tiny editions, sometimes as few as 5 copies. He spent decades on his prophetic books, the vast mythological epics like Milton and Jerusalem, which almost no one read. He worked as a commercial engraver for hire, illustrating other people's work because his own work didn't pay. He died in 1827 at 69, singing hymns, reportedly in a state of great happiness. His wife Catherine survived him by 4 years, selling his work until her death. The rediscovery came slowly. Alexander Gilchrist wrote the first serious biography in 1863, introducing Blake to the Victorian art world. The Pre-Raphaelites admired him. Yeats edited an edition of his work. But the real explosion came in the 1960s, when Blake's imagery, the cosmic figures, the serpents, the flames, the radical politics, suddenly mapped perfectly onto the psychedelic counterculture. Allen Ginsberg cited Blake as a primary influence. Jim Morrison named his band after a line from The Marriage of Heaven and Hell. If the doors of perception were cleansed, everything would appear to man as it is, infinite. Aldous Huxley had already borrowed that phrase for his mescaline memoir. The Doors borrowed it from Huxley. So, a working-class London engraver who died in obscurity gave his name, indirectly, to one of the most famous rock bands in history. The man who pulled his own prints is everywhere.
Thank you for watching this Ignorant Artist podcast. I hope if you're watching on YouTube, you'll like and subscribe, and there'll be many more to come. We appreciate your time, and thank you.